There's no GPS because we're inside, so let's see how stable this thing is in the air. Let's do it. Look how steady that is! Holy crap! I'm trying to go fly my drone for the first time. Reading some videos online that said one of the things that they most liked about the Mavic as compared with some other drones was that, you know, it was a little smaller, a little quieter, just didn't stand out like a sore thumb to people. I'm gonna try to find a secluded spot. This looks like a pretty good spot. I might come back to it. I've got to use this to pilot the drone. I guess I'll just snap my fingers and switch to some drone footage. Alright, that was a hell of a lot of fun. It's not even that cold out yet, but my hands are absolutely brutally freezing. Yeah, what else can I say? A lot of fun. I have to put my hands in my pockets now though, because they are, look at these, they're bright red. Hands are bright red. So, gonna put the camera away, get home, get warm, to see what this footage looks like when it's off the drone. Drone first flight? I think I'd call that a success. I bet a lot of you forgot or didn't even know that you can send me mail. Well, someone didn't forget. Maybe I should have waited to not do this in the car. I'm too excited though, I have to do it. This is the first one. Can I find a place where there's less light, maybe? I'm gonna find a place where there's less light. I know, I'm just going 5 feet. 5 feet without a seatbelt on. I know. Don't tell me it's too dark in here. That's gonna have to do. Finally got some mail here. Matt, writing from Flint, Michigan to say, sick call with 6'7" on Live at the Bike. Love the vlog. Andrew. Wait a minute. Even though I've only had this P.O. box for a little while, just everybody knows to put junk in a P.O. box, right? Random catalog and some random advertising, so that kind of sucked. To like see stuff in there and it wasn't a thing. But I've got real mail too. Cool, thanks Andrew. I've been to Michigan, not Flint. I've been to, what's the name of the casino? Firekeepers, for the MSPT when it was there. By the way, great event, cool casino. Would love to go back, but it's a little further from where I live now. So we'll see about that. Thanks Andrew for being the one and only at this point, mail time sender. So if you guys don't know, you can send me mail at that address. Can you see that? All right, I'll put it on the screen again for real. It's also in the description. Send me mail. Thanks again, Andrew. First mail time. This is going up somewhere. This is going either on my wall or or by my computer, something like that. I'll have to figure something out, but thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Let's go. Well, you guessed it. Another pretty crazy promo going on at Maryland Live today. Most of the day is either $500 or $1,000 high hands every 15 minutes. and it changes off based on the time, but hey, I would take either. It's not filling up as crazy fast as it did the last time they had a promo like this, so they don't even have all the tables full yet, even though it's already just about 2 p.m. So I'm gonna head over there, and we're gonna try to make something happen today. Let's go. Made it onto the call-in list and made it to the casino. So I am gonna get out of here. Hopefully the wait won't be too long. Surprisingly, still not every game is full, which is pretty shocking. So in this session, I played 1-3. It was pretty much just a promo day. I came in mostly for the promo. I like to kind of have a better mindset coming into sessions, but sometimes you're just there to put the grind hours in. Don't always have a lot of flexibility for when I can play. But that being said, I actually ended up coming in and focusing pretty well. Was pretty happy with my attention level at the table. And so kind of the theme of this video is having reads on opponents and kind of just using them effectively. So in this session, I played most of my hands against the same opponent, same villain. He's a guy who I saw right away make a pretty light call down on the river against a very large, very polarized bet from an opponent who likely did not have a bluff range. The guy he was up against did have a flush that hand, and he had called him down with just one pair. So right away, this was like the first hand I saw when I sat down at the table. I took note of it. I was definitely planning to utilize that information against that opponent. So with that in mind, this first hand we're getting into, there's a straddle. I'm under the gun +1 with ace queen, and I bump it up to 25. The hijack, who's the player I was just talking about, makes the call, and the big blind calls as well. The flop comes ace 9 deuce rainbow, and this is already a fantastic spot for me. Big blind checks, I bet 45, and the hijack calls, making it an even better spot. The big blind folds, so we're going heads up to a turn. Turn's a king, which I consider to be a so-so card for me. It looks like a better card for me than for him, and I feel like he might let it go with like a weak top pair on the turn and river, since there's just not a lot of logical bluffs that I look like I could have. So I decide to do something a little bit unconventional and check, plan to just bluff catch and or get a little bit more value on the river. He checks it back, so we're going heads up to a river card. River's a 3 of spades. I go ahead and now do something very unusual for me. I overbet. I bet 230, and mostly I'm doing this because of that exact first hand I saw where he made a call of a very large bet. The holding that he had didn't seem to matter a whole lot. What mattered was he felt that the player could have a bluff and he could beat a bluff. So I bet 230 with just top pair, top kicker at this point. He makes the call, and my hand is good. So it's nice to kind of pick up that information early, have it pay off early, and just kind of be up early in the session.
I don't know if my fill light's on.
In the next hand, in the next spot that we tangled in, I open under the gun with ace king to $15. Now, the player who I had just won a pot off of, this was maybe an orbit later, he definitely seemed kind of disgruntled about how that hand went, and I think he might be kind of looking to get mixed up with me, get a little involved. He bumps it up to 41. Folds back around to me. We've got probably about 400 to start the hand effective in his stack, so I want to make it a size where it's clear I'm putting all the money in. I think he could be getting out of line, but he could also have worse hands that he might jam over the top. I don't really want to raise and have him call though. So I put in the 4-bet, put in that 4th bet with ace king. Love this spot so far. I make it 170.
He tanks for quite a while. Again, seems pretty disgruntled, pretty frustrated about how this is going, and he ultimately folds. So we're just going to take that one down, but pretty happy just picking up the 40 or so uncontested dollars.
Oh, it was ace, ace, nine, like 3.
In this next hand, we are up against the same opponent yet again. He's in middle position, and he raises to $11. In the meantime, I have seen this player be pretty active. This is his standard size, and he's definitely opening a lot of pots. He's limping a little bit, but not a ton. So when it folds around to me in the big blind and I've got queen 10 offsuit, I just go ahead and toss in the call, getting a pretty good price, and I think I'm going to get into some good situations. It doesn't really get much better than this board. We flop the nuts on king, jack, 9, rainbow. Loving life here, planning to check it over to him, hopefully get in a check raise, and go from there. So I check, he obliges me with a $15 bet, and I bump it up to 40. I don't think there's a lot of reason to wait on this board. He can have one pair, but a lot of the times his one pair will have draws to go with it, basically a gut shot all the time, and occasionally he will have two pair or something better. So I bump it up to 40, and he makes the call pretty quickly. The turn's not as good as the flop. It puts a 4th card to the straight on the board. It's an offsuit queen. So full rainbow board, but now only my 10 plays, only the 10 in my hand matters. And it could be perceived as a little bit of a scare card for him. I decided to check it over to him both to kind of disguise the strength of my hand and to let him potentially turn some of his hands into bluffs. He obliges us again. He bets $80 now, and I decided to make the call. I don't want to check raise and blow him off of any of those like hands he's turning into bluffs, and I pretty much only represent straights if I do that, which I don't really want to do when I have the straight. I also can't think of any other hands that I would particularly want to check raise here. So I make the call. We're going heads up to a river. River's an offsuit 6. I check it over at him yet again, and he bets 200. Now there's a little bit more money behind, probably about 150 to 200 back. So I went really back and forth about jamming versus calling. But the thing was, I just didn't feel like he would have any hands that would bet call off that were worse than chops. And he can still hold ace 10. He can still hold a lot of 10x. And I don't think he really would bet the turn with sets, with 2 pair, anything like that. So I think on the river, he's very polarized. He's either got something he's bet calling with that is a chop or beats me, or it's a bluff that he's definitely bet folding, like no question. So I just ultimately decide to call. He says 1 pair. I turn it over and take it down yet again. So far, definitely getting the better of these situations here against this opponent. Definitely happy to take it. In this hand, finally playing a pot against a different opponent. There's a limp. I'm in middle position with pocket jacks, and I bump it up to 17. The guy is next to act. Again, he's been pretty straightforward. He bumps it up to 65 now. There's about 350 effective behind when it folds back to me. Now, it's not quite just a set mine spot, but I'm not super excited about it. I do ultimately make the call though, planning to just kind of evaluate the flop and go from there. So we go heads up, and the board comes 6-5 deuce with 2 diamonds. I do not have a diamond. I check it over at him, and he bets 100. Definitely not excited here. I don't think he necessarily has a ton of ace-king combos, and if he does, who knows how often he's even c-betting it. Not even convinced he has pocket 10s in his range, so it's just not a super great spot, but in the end I do call. We're going heads up to a turn with only 250 behind, and a pretty big pot at this point. The turn comes a 10 of diamonds. A little bit of a scare card for him. I don't expect him to have diamonds that often, if ever. I check, and he checks it behind. I'm starting to now wonder if I could get away with bluffing the river and trying to get him off of like queens plus, but seems a little bit far-fetched at 1-3 that this would work. This is kind of going through my head as the river card peels off an offsuit queen. So now the 3 combos of queens that are in his range at this point just improved, and I don't think he's ever folding those hands. I think kings and aces are a little far-fetched as folds as well. So if I do bet, I'm probably only getting him off of ace king, which at this point has no value to me because I beat that hand. I also think that ace king would probably check back the river in his spot, even when I've checked now 3 streets. So I ultimately decide to check and pretty much hope that he checks behind with ace king. He does check behind. That feels like it might be a good sign, but he turns over pocket aces. So not going to do it here. He takes this one down. Kind of feel like I got away without losing too much, but I could have also folded the flop. I kind of went back and forth with that one, but happy to sort of minimize my losses in this hand.
15.
In this hand, I'm in the cutoff with ace-7 of clubs. I open it up to $15. The button calls, and the big blind, who's our favorite customer so far, same guy from those previous 3 hands, he makes the call as well, so we're going 3 ways to a flop. The flop comes down 7 high. It's a pretty good board. It's 7-3 deuce rainbow. Checks to me. I go ahead and bet $30. The button folds and the big blind calls, so pretty happy with the situation. I think, again, he's kind of after me at this point. He definitely is kind of itching to win a pot against me, so I think he could have a lot of like ace high floats here, gut shots, and like maybe just any 2 overs potentially. The turn is a 9 of hearts, which is the second heart on board. He checks, and I now bet 65. He calls pretty quickly, and the river comes the queen of spades. Surprisingly, he now leads for 180. Pretty unexpected, pretty weird line, so I wanted to take a little time with it, figure out what I thought he was doing. On this turn card, it felt like he could be peeling with a lot of hands that improve to a flush draw on the turn. But on this river, there's just not a lot of queen X that he can have in his range. He can't have queen 9 of hearts because the 9 of hearts is on the board. And I don't think he can have any queen X 2 pair other than queen 9. So unless he's peeling the flop with just queen 9 suited, not of hearts, some other backdoor draw, that's kind of the only hand I could see other than maybe a flopped set. But those are pretty unlikely in my opinion, because I think he would be pretty likely to check raise an earlier street once I have continued betting. So at the end of the day, I just didn't give him a whole lot of value hands, and there were enough missed draws that I felt he could bluff with. I put in the call. He says, nice call. I turn it over, my hand is good, and I get to scoop in another one. Not too often I get to call down with third pair and feel very confident about it at 1-3, so nice to get a fun spot like that here. In this hand, there's a limp. I'm on the button with pocket aces, and I bump it up to 17. The big blind doesn't want to wait. He just stuffs in $100, folds around to me, and I make the call. The board runs out 6-5 deuce, 6 jack, and my hand is good. Not a whole lot to talk about there, but it's a nice one to win. In this hand, I'm under the gun with pocket 10s, and I open to $15. The button and the big blind both call, and we get a pretty above average flop here, I would say. It's definitely in the top few. It's 10-3 deuce with a flush draw. I see bet $35, and only the button calls. The turn's an 8 of diamonds. Doesn't really change anything. Shouldn't really do a whole lot other than occasionally give him some other draw or a pair to go with a flush draw. I go ahead and bet 90 now. I don't think many hands that he calls the flop with would fold this turn card, so I wanted to size up a little bit. He calls, and the river now comes the king of diamonds. So the flush draw has bricked, but now some of his draws will have a better top pair, like a king. It's a little bit of a scare card to some of the 10x in his range, but I still think we should be betting kind of big. His missed draws, I don't think will bluff if I check, so I just want to try to get some value from the hands that he will call with. I toss out a bet of 235. He tanks. He tanks for a long time. He tanks for probably 4 minutes, actually, and I pretty much never call the clock in a cash game, and I wasn't really about to here, but somebody else did it for me. The clock gets called on him. He takes another probably 5 or 10 seconds before the floor even shows up, and he ultimately makes the fold. So nice to get a little bit of value out of top set here. Nice for the board to just stay, pretty safe for us, not really have to make any tricky decisions this time.
SR1, SR1HC, running Alice, JB, and Sen. The 225 card must move to located on table 6.
I have the M2 driver.
In this hand, pick up another big holding, Another one of my favorite 2 cards to see, pocket aces. I'm in early position. I go ahead and bump it up to $15, and somehow I get 6 callers. So we're going 7 ways to the flop. Not really a situation I ever want to be in, except maybe in some limped pots with certain kinds of holdings. I guess if there was a hand I would like to have in this spot, aces would be it. But that being said, hoping to flop pretty well here. We don't do too bad. The flop comes king 8-3, all diamonds, and I hold the ace of diamonds. Checks to me. I go ahead and c-bet $70. I don't think there's any way to kind of disguise the strength of my hand, and there are still worse holdings that people could continue with against me. That being said, I definitely wouldn't mind taking it down. Middle position ends up calling, and we somehow go from 7 players on the flop to just 2, heads up to the turn. The turn comes the 2 of spades, total brick. I jam in the remaining $200 effective. He ends up pretty much snap calling, and I was a little bit worried about sets and flushes, but river brings a 3 that pairs the board. I turn over my hand and he says it's good. Now, later on in the session, I did kind of gain some respect for this player. I felt that he was a pretty strong opponent. We were playing short-handed. He was kind of making my life a little bit difficult in some very small pots. So I definitely felt that he just kind of got unlucky here. He told me after the fact that he had king-queen with the queen of diamonds. I'm definitely repping mostly hands that beat him, but it's a really tough spot when you've also got the queen of diamonds. Just really hard to get away from, and debatable whether he even should be thinking about folding that hand. So at the end of the day, in for the max buy-in, but no rebuys. In for 500, out for 1819 for a profit of $1,319. Definitely going to take it. Pretty pleased. And just nice to have a big win after a lot of up and down. Need to give a very quick shout out to Anthony, who was at my 1-3 table for the session. Played for probably a few hours and he said hi. So nice to meet you, Anthony. Subscribe if you haven't already. You will get notifications about new videos that I put out. Go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about this video. Leave me a thumbs up if you feel like it. Doesn't hurt. Share. That doesn't hurt either. You know, I don't think any of those buttons actually hurt to press, so just do it. I'll see you guys in the next video.